You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
AI is making phishing attacks faster, more convincing, and harder for people to spot, and traditional security awareness and phishing training weren't designed for this level of attack. HawksHunt helps security teams prepare employees for the attacks they face every day with personalized phishing training that adapts to each employee and reduces risky behavior over time. For IT and security leaders looking to strengthen their human layer of defense without adding more manual work, visit hawkshunt.com/cyberwire to learn more. That's HOXHUNT.com/cyberwire.
It used to be government-led, huge manufacturing. Then recently we did more industrialization and commercial scaling. But, when we look back at the beginning, or even in the 90s, it was more like 90% was government. Well, we really flipped that. And now presently we're going through digitalization. And I think I said this last time that, your new space companies that are starting up, they're born digital. And they really get attention from the major players. You're noticing how quickly people can move in a digital world.
Welcome. I'm Maria Varmazes, and you're listening to T-Minus Space Cyber Briefing. In this show, we examine the evolution of cybersecurity in the global and orbital infrastructure that powers, protects, and connects our lives. Hello, and thank you for joining me. Today's show is an interview with Jason Roberson of Dassault Systems, where he walks me through how satellite design and manufacturing are evolving while we see record-breaking space launches and activity year after year. And that maintenance bit is especially relevant for our cybersecurity focus, as satellite maintenance is still mostly done remote via software. Makes sense, right? It's kind of air-gapped up there on orbit. So, what does everyone's favorite phrase, secure by design, actually mean in the space context, where security is often addressed after everything's just about already built? And as we talked about in last week's show, as the space supply chain becomes increasingly international and dependent on cloud connectivity, how will satellite makers navigate all of this securely? Good questions. Let's ask Jason. Jason, it is so good to see you again. Thank you so much for coming back on T-Minus.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It's always a pleasure to see you guys.
It's been a little while since we last chatted, so if you don't mind reintroducing yourself to the audience, tell me a bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for that. Yes, so I've spent 25 years with the Air Force in the space program. Whenever I finished that in 2021, I did some consulting for a while and then found my way to Dassault Systems in December of 2021 and have been on an adventure with them since. Totally jumped in with what we bring to many industries on virtual twins and digitalization, and it's just been a great adventure with us. So that continues to march forward.
So for our chat today, I wanted to dive into sort of, I guess, the latest on satellite design and maintenance, but picking your brain a little bit as we talk about building in security concerns and making sure that, secure by design is part of that process, especially now that our show is focusing much more on space cyber. I guess I wanted to just pick your brain a little bit on how that all makes sense to you and what your thoughts are on that. So I don't know, not a killer opening question, but I'm just curious what that sparks for you.
Yeah, it's design has been a challenge since, we first started doing this, 60 something years ago. And I would say maintenance is still a challenge for, we don't really have a full in-space maintenance capability. It's all remotely done with software now, which has a whole cyber aspect to it as that moves forward. But the population growth in space, of kid in space, is impressive. The Space Foundation's report that came out for 2025 showed a over 60% increase in the amount of vehicles launched between 24 and 25. So those all had to be manufactured. So we're seeing a huge boom in the manufacturing. So we'll probably focus. I'm seeing a little more on the design and manufacturing aspect because the maintenance piece isn't quite mature enough yet. But it wasn't just the U.S. market. They highlighted 120 organizations across 37 countries, and that's just outside of SpaceX. When people think about who's throwing things into space and booming, well, people think of SpaceX. So that's outside of SpaceX, and the drivers are large LEO constellations. There's still the bespoke systems like James Webb Telescope and moon landers. And then there's a lot of smaller batch custom systems that are coming from startups and smaller companies and even large companies building, custom mission sets. But the way we designed has changed, and the way we manufactured has changed. It used to be government-led, huge manufacturing. Then recently we did more industrialization and commercial scaling. And and by the way, on those statistics from the Space Foundation, 90% of that was commercial. When we look back at the beginning, or even in the 90s, it was more like 90% was government.
Yep.
Well, we really flipped that. And now presently we're going through digitalization. And I think I said this last time that, your new space companies that are starting up, they're born digital. So I think they have a huge advantage in the market to move fast. And they really get attention from the major players, your OEMs like your Northrops and Lockheeds, and even SpaceX, noticing how quickly people can move in a digital world. So then, of course, AI is huge. I think last time we spoke, AI was a topic, but it wasn't a forefront topic. It wasn't just at all of our fingertips. So there are capabilities that have existed for design, since CAD was invented, computer-aided drafting was invented, but now you put the AI layer into that and create a digital thread across your whole product life cycle. So really you can go from the air quote drawing board to in-space operations and into mission, all in the virtual world, and see your whole mission play out before you have to do the huge investment in building kit. We even have virtual reality assisted design and manufacturing. So even once you're in the process of doing that manufacturing and really design it for manufacturing and design it for maintenance. So I think at Commercial Space Week, whenever I went by your booth, I saw the OrbitFab CEO was talking to you.
Yes.
And they've got a great, they and others are looking at in-space refueling. But a lot of the current systems in space aren't configured for that. They weren't designed for maintenance. They're designed to get software updates, but they're not designed to get more fuel or to get, bolt-ons to have more capabilities. So I think we're seeing an evolution in the thinking for sure. And then, so there's so much going on. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Jason, you're absolutely right. When we last chatted, the idea of AI being part of the process was kind of that'll be cool when that happens, sort of thing. And I remember a lot of the conversations were like, we're keeping an eye on it, but we're on the cusp of that happening. And here we are, just a few years later, and the speed at which that has changed is just mind-boggling to me. But I mean, just some of what you were describing, you kind of blew my mind a little bit about the idea of where AI can come in this process. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, well, it's you have your AI in your design process. You can have what we call virtual companions at SO Systems. So it's we have a virtual companion named Leo, who's the engineer. Then we have one called Aura, who's the business expert. And you basically ask them questions or say, "Hey, I'm trying to design this with Leo," and he's like a coworker that will help you design this, and even say, "Oh, I see where you're going." It's not just a language model. It is agentic AI. So it looks at what you're doing, it anticipates what you do, and we're seeing more of that across the industry. But we have definitely at the core of our capabilities are integrating artificial intelligence. And whenever you've got your design right and you're bringing it forward to manufacturing, I mentioned design for manufacturing, design for maintenance, and designing for maintenance. is a lot more applicable in the areas that we can touch, like aircraft. And that's applicable to the space industry because you have like Dawn Aerospace that's looking at, launching things from a drone that goes up. You've got Virgin Galactic, who actually goes to space and comes back. And then, crewed systems can be maintained. There's maintenance involved there because they go up and come back. So there's an aspect there. But, we think of the robots in the future, but there's also a term that I just learned, I think, last year called cobots. So cobots. Yeah. So they're reshaping the factories. So they're really your companion. They're an extension. I'm being the, 25 plus years ingrained of air operations, and me from a military aspect, I thought, okay, I'm thinking about an autonomous wingman or I'm a piloted aircraft, but then with a dozen co-pilots that are autonomous that you control. So in a factory floor, it's very similar. And there's been a boom in robot demand across manufacturing as well. There's been a increase from the International Federation of Robotics had a report, and they mentioned the growth significantly increasing, that there was the highest demand in recent years, going from in 10 years, there were it more than doubled in the last 10 years. And they had 221,000 units installed from 2014 to 2014. And then in 2024, there were 542,000 robot units installed in factories. And what I found very interesting in that, because space is a global competitive area, that the Asia and Australia market had about 75% of that. So they were really dominating where they were installing robots and cobots into the manufacturing process. And all this is, you can have some AI on premise where we talk about, the cyber aspect of this. Yeah. So AI does computation, as I mentioned, your virtual companion. You tell it what you're working on, and you go home for the evening. You come back the next day, and I like to say it's almost like Iron Man or Tony Stark with Jarvis designing his different Iron Man suits. We're not quite to that point yet, but that's really where AI can take us. But it requires connectivity to these data centers to do this mass processing. Yeah. And then you've got to be connected to the cloud. And so whenever you get into, if you're not on premise and you're not in a closed environment, you do have a cyber aspect that has to be thought about. And we get so excited about these things. Sometimes we're just moving forward with these super cool capabilities. You really need a, cybersecurity minded person to give it a look and give you that perspective on it as well. Of course.
Something to mull over, cybersecurity-minded people, as we go to a quick break. Be right back. We're back now with my interview with Jason Roberson of Dassault Systems, jumping back in on the topic of how we secure new capabilities in advanced spacecraft manufacturing and design. And I just, when you were talking about cobots, and I just was thinking of R2-D2. I don't know if that's...
yeah, for sure.
I was just are we going to that? Because that's awesome.
So yeah, R2 is one of my favorites. He's awesome. But being the Gen Xer I am, of course, I think of Mr. Data from Star Trek.
I mean, yeah.
And who's got a lot more physical capabilities, I guess. But it's amazing.
That's the future I've always dreamed of. So I'm just amped as heck to hear that we're taking steps towards that. Sorry, that is completely off topic, but I just had to say that. So going back to the cybersecurity aspect, because we were talking about design for maintenance, for example, and I'm wondering, in sort of the paradigms here, secure by design, where that fits in with all this, because I mean, all of these incredibly fast-moving components and all the greater amounts of automation going on, things are moving much more quickly. And as you mentioned, we've got to secure that. So tell me about where, secure by design fits in with all this.
Well, it has to be one of the challenges that I saw in the defense acquisition process was a secure system was often thought about after it was built. So that was kind of, okay, now let's go back and plug this in now that we've got a system. So I think the secure by design has to be by design, not, okay, we received it, it's been thrown over the wall to us, we're going to put it in operations, but now we've got to pass security requirements. And then each nation has requirements for defense work on the cloud. We have ITAR and FedRAMP in the US. Other countries have those. So there are regulations there saying if you're going to operate in this environment, in this cloud environment, you have to meet certain standards for it to be controlled, to be secure, and it can be really challenging for the industry because space is international. It would be tough to find a wholly designed, built, and operated system that did not touch at least one partner or ally. And every player is international. Even you'll see startups with, we had the Farnborough Air Show last week. You see startups that one of the local startups here they moved along a bit, but on the Space Coast, I saw them. They were at Farnborough. I was like, oh, didn't even know you guys were going to be here, but they're already looking at expanding into international markets. So there are regulatory challenges as well as the ones and zeros challenges, and it really takes there has been discussion before about you don't have to be just a aerospace engineer or a rocket scientist to be in the space market. There's really space law. There's space. There's even psychology aspects in the space market, space industry. So there's a lot in play. I'm not a cyber expert, but I'm cyber aware, which I think we all have to be in the space industry, from the design aspect, and then even your virtual companions have to have those parameters for this is what I need to operate within in the digital layer as well.
I really appreciate that, Jason, and hearing your expertise in terms of especially the satellite design side of things. I appreciate that you're not a cyber expert on this, because I think what a lot of cyber folks really need to understand is that broader landscape of what's going on, and also what different systems are doing. Like that systematic view is so critical because that helps us understand what better needs defending, frankly.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Oh, I appreciate you, Jason. And I know we're coming up on time, so if there's anything you want to leave our audience with, it's over to you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So I think the future success and leading capabilities in space won't be defined by who builds the most hardware, who can just manufacture the most. I think it's going to be who can innovate and collaborate to evolve how we overcome that, air quotes, space is hard challenge. In this I call it a AI collaborative phase. We're leveraging knowledge and know-how that we've built over the last 60 years and combining that with the capabilities we get in the virtual world in order to improve what we're doing in the real world. So there's so much potential to bring, to have it right first time by leveraging the virtual world so that we can increase the acceleration of the space industry.
And that's T-Minus Space Cyber Briefing, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. If you like what you heard today, you will also enjoy our newsletter, Signals and Space. You'll get research and notes pulled together by our producer, Ethan Cook, and me, alongside this week's top space cyber news stories. Make sure to subscribe by visiting thecyberwire.com/newsletters. We'd love to know what you think of our podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you a step ahead in the rapidly changing cybersecurity landscape. If you like our show, please share a rating and review in your podcast app. Please also fill out the survey in the show notes or send an email to space@n2k.com. We're proud that N2K Cyberwire is part of the daily routine of the most influential leaders and operators in the public and private sector, from the Fortune 500 to many of the world's preeminent intelligence and law enforcement agencies. N2K helps cybersecurity professionals grow, learn, and stay informed. As the nexus for discovery and connection, we bring you the people, the technology, and the ideas shaping the future of secure innovation. Learn how at n2k.com. Thanks for listening to T-Minus. I am your host, Maria Varmazis. This show is produced by Ethan Cook and Liz Stokes. We're mixed by Elliot Peltzman and Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben, with content strategy by Mayan Plout. Peter Kilpie is our publisher. See you next week.